I'd now like to introduce our final keynote speaker of the day. He is a leading voice in the use of visual information to create sustainable, lasting, positive change in areas of conflict. In 2008, he co-founded Videre, an NGO with groundbreaking methodology to equip oppressed communities in using customized technology to uncover information in places that media can't or won't go. A sought-after expert in using technology to expose human rights violations, he is frequently called upon by civil society, governments, international organizations, and media decision-makers. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Oren Yakobovich.
Hi, what a wonderful introduction. I don't know if I should speak now. I'm probably going to ruin it. 2014 was a very bad year for freedom and to the ones that want to see more open and liberal world. The invasion of Russia into the Ukraine, the drawback of any democratic gains in Egypt. In Turkey, President Erdogan with his ongoing fight against freedom of press and human rights defenders. DRC cutting the internet and mobile communication, and further centralization of power in China. This is just a few examples of the fight on freedom. It is against this backdrop that my organization, Videre, is developing new tools and models to prevent human rights violation. We give oppressed community the ability to change their reality. We equip, train, and support activists. We are building sustainable network that using cameras, mostly hidden ones, to obtain original video materials in places media can't or won't go. We are watching the watchers. We are breaking the traditional power structure between citizens and governments and giving these communities the ability to hold the government accountable. I want to start with a story that will reflect later on about the current security situation that we are facing. 6 years ago, I landed in an African country. I had in my bags 200 hidden cameras. This was a friendly country, a democracy, but its neighboring country was a dictatorship. My aim was to get these cameras into the hands of the human rights activists in this country. They needed it to document the abuses that they are suffering from the regime. The morning after, an activist drove with a car from that country. We met, we drove together to the closest garage. We took the air out of the spare tire and we filled the hidden cameras inside this tire and we drove to the border. Obviously, we've been very anxious and afraid about what's going to happen, even though we scoped the border before. When we arrived, we understand there was no need really to be in stress. It was hardly a shelter. There was 2 guys there, very bored. They hardly looked at us, stamped our passport. A few minutes after we'd been in this country, and that week, these cameras were in the hands of the human rights activists. You probably wonder how come I found myself taking cameras to these countries. I was born in Israel to a right-wing family. And when I was 18, I joined the Israeli army, and I served as an officer in one of the hard-minded infantry units. It was the first time I came hand in hand to see what the occupation looked like. I served a lot of time in Gaza and in the West Bank, and it was just after the first Palestinian uprising, so there was still a lot of stress there. I came to realize that the occupation not just harming the rights of the Palestinians, but I also realized what it's doing to our people. And I decided to do what I consider one of the most patriotic acts I can do for my country, and I refused to serve in the West Bank. And not just that I refused to serve in the West Bank, I decided I'm going to bring the stories and the images and things that I saw in the West Bank to my people, because I was not exposed to them, neither of my friend, and I wanted to show them how it looked like. I will share with you few of the visuals from a project I did with an organization called B'Tselem. B'Tselem is the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories. It's a wonderful organization. Please check it. Together, we analyzed the West Bank and choose 100 families that living in the most risky places. close to checkpoints, near army bases, and side by side with settlers. The images that I'm going to show you can be quite explicit, so some of you might find it uncomfortable to watch, but both videos were shown in Israeli television. The masked men that you're going to see in the first clip are Jewish settlers. Minutes before the cameras was turned on, these settlers approached Palestinian family that worked their land, and they tell them that they have to leave because this land belonged to the Jewish settlers. The Palestinians refuse. Let's see what's happened. The masked men you see are Jewish settlers. They're approaching Palestinian family. This clip is from demonstration in the West Bank. The guy in green going to be arrested. The guy in the middle going to be arrested in a second. You will see him blindfolded and handcuffed. You're going to be shot in the feet with a rubber bullet. As I said, these images when shown in Israel created a massive debate. And they forced the army and the police to investigate these events. Without the cameras in the hand of these Palestinians, this investigation will never happen. Thanks to this project and images like this one and others, we managed to reduce the level of violence in the West Bank. Now, I just have to say something. This is not a reflection of the whole Israeli occupation. This is a rare occasion, they are happening, and the people that are doing these kind of things have to be brought to justice. This work in the West Bank and in B'Tselem got me thinking that this idea of giving cameras to oppressed community can be brought to other places in the world. That we can basically empower marginalized communities that are living under dictatorship with the ability to tell their story. I moved to London and opened an organization in London, raised a bit of money, and did a very stupid mistake. I thought I can do the same methodology from the West Bank to other places in the world. Took some regular cameras and flew to one of the countries and started training people. Overtly, with regular camera. Quite fast, I started seeing that there's Secret Service around us. We've been followed, I've been followed, our phone was tapped, and we understand you can't work in the same ways in these conditions. I wasted all the money that we raised, went back to London. My board and my donors was very, very angry about me, but we had to take it back and understand how we can really come with much more sophisticated methods to be able to address the security in these conditions. This is how we came to develop our model, the Videre model. Every project that we are starting is starting with an in-depth research, understanding which images are missing, which stories are not making it out from these areas. We're understanding who are the people that are in place that are able to film these images and where these images should go to create a positive change. Then we partner with the groups on the ground and we start giving them training. Now our partners are working in high-risk environment, risking their life. This is why security is one of the most important things for us. We're using code names, we're building cell-based structures, we're not passing information through the internet, everything is happening physically. And we also give them hidden cameras to be able to film in a secure way. We're buying cameras off the shelf, we're breaking them apart, and we're putting the technology inside things they can carry in their environment that they are working in. A lot of the people that we're working with have hardly nothing. So sometimes we're putting this technology inside stones and inside wood, inside clothes that they are wearing, inside bags that they are carrying. Anything that they can take in their environment without the attention of the one that they're trying to film. Thing that will blend in the environment. But security, of course, is going way beyond just filming with hidden cameras. Before we're doing any operation, we're understanding and analyzing the risk of every location, and we're building a backup plan to make sure that if something goes wrong, we have solutions. After we're getting the footage from the ground, we are focusing on verification. Verification is extremely important. If you don't understand the footage thoroughly and understand what it is happening there and all the context around it, we can't really use it. That's why we're training the people that we are working with how to film the location in a way that we can identify it, filming a road sign, building, watches, papers, so we can then see where it is. We're double-checking the information, we're looking at maps, and we're looking at the metadata. Just when we are sure that we can trust the information, we're distributing it. Now, no story, for our point of view, worth nothing if it doesn't create an impact on the ground. That's why, depends on the project that we are running, we're making sure that the stories that we are getting will end up in places that can really influence the situation. This is why sometimes we're giving the material to governments or to embassies to create the pressure from outside. Sometimes working with lawyers to use this evidence, to use these materials as evidence in court. Many times we're using the media, and we expose the materials in the media without taking credit most of the time, all of the time, because we are behind the scene. We don't want to show as the one that's taking these materials. Sometimes this material is going back to the communities, to the activists, to be able to make effective campaigns. We have a variety of projects. Sometimes we're working in democracy with marginalized community. In many cases, we're working in dictatorship. Now, I'm assuming most of you are living under democracy, so I want to give you an example of what it's meant to work in dictatorship. From some reason or another, believe it or not, dictators love election. It is important for them. It's important for them to show that they've been basically elected by the people. And they will do everything in their hand and in their power, practice all the power that they have to make sure that they will win in the election day. This is why election is a good framework for us to work around. Now, when I'm talking about election, I'm not talking just filming the day and seeing if there was a corruption during the election. This regime sometimes spend months, sometimes years to prepare to this election. And we want to be there to understand what methods they're using to oppress the community. One of our first and biggest projects was in one of the dictators in Africa. I obviously am not saying names of countries for the security of the partners that we are working with, but this was one of the dictators, one of the last dictators that's still holding on in the last 35 years. In this country, we built an undercover network, so 200 people that were spread across the country in cell-based structure. These people filmed what the regime did to make sure they secured the votes. They use a variety of methods. They used to push the agenda through churches. They use political motivated militia to intimidate people. They hitchhiked food supply that came from other countries as a support and didn't give it until the people will sign up that they're going to vote for them. They gathered them together in villages when they thought nobody's seeing and told them that they know who they are and they're going to take revenge if not going to vote for the right party. I want to show you an example of clip how it's looked like from inside, how this intimidation mechanism worked. This is just standing a few examples from the materials and the one we can use without jeopardizing the people that film this material. Now, these images was broadcast all over the world. We also made sure that they end in countries that are surrounding this dictatorship and in all the international body that this country is part of. But most importantly, we broadcast these images and the sound of these images back to the community because these perpetrators that are working in the rural areas, sure that nobody see them. They think they can go there and do whatever they want. And suddenly, when they hear their voices in the radios, in the station where they're practicing and doing this event, they got scared. The impunity was broken. They realized that somebody is following them. and this immediately reduced the violence in this area. So thanks to this project and thanks to these wonderful activists, we managed to create an election that was not free, but it was not violence, and people were not killed during this election. We continue to use all kinds of creative ways to take cameras and equipment into countries and story out, but it's getting harder and harder. I came here after I was traveling in 8 countries in the last month. In all of them, they scanned my fingerprints and took my picture of my face. So now my information is in the hand of all this government. Many of them, of course, are not really sympathizing with what we are doing. The checkpoint that I used to pass 6 years ago very easily now have the same equipment, and we cannot pass this way anymore. As our movement becoming more scrutinized and the risk is getting bigger, just last year, 200 journalists was arrested. This is the second highest number recorded by the Committee to Protect Journalists in the last year or since they're doing their tallies. We are not journalists, but we are facing the same risk, if not higher. Since 2008, when we launched Videre, we trained more than 500 activists that carrying hidden cameras and filming across few countries. With a budget that less of £1 million that got to us with a generous donation of high network individuals and foundation, we continue to bring stories out from this location, from places that media can't or won't go, or other organizations find it very, very hard to operate. As the risk getting higher, the need is getting bigger. In the last days here, I realized that security and privacy are actually twin brothers. They're going hand in hand. I might know a lot about security, but I don't know much about privacy. And everyone here, I don't know if you realize it or not, you are basically human rights defenders. You're in the forefront of this struggle. Also, what I realized in the last 2 days here, that the conversation that is taking place here is one that is very mind-rotated in the Western thoughts and practices. There is a need to take this conversation farther to other places in the world. As the internet and the smartphone are penetrating farther to the third world country and the developing world, you will be called on, if you haven't already, to give advice on privacy and to build effective legislation. I'm almost sure that some government will ask you to help them to get away with breaking privacy in some places. Please be mindful about it. Your work and your advice will have consequences, sometimes deadly ones. And your work will influence the work that we are doing and other human activists in these countries. I'm going to leave you with 2 questions before I'm finishing. The first one is, in this increased environment of surveillance, how human rights activists can continue to operate in a safe way. How big organization or small organization trying to bring about a change in their own community can operate when Big Brother is watching. Thank you very much for having me.